Hello and welcome. My name is Robin Veda, and welcome to this little bitty yoga class where we are going to break down crow pose for you. So, the way I teach is I like to give a lot of variations, a lot of options, so that it truly is an all levels class. I've got people in my class who are in their 70s. I've got people in my class who are in their 20s and can do handstands in their sleep. So, every single level, every single skill, ability, body type, and age is welcome in my class. Let's talk about how we can work on the things that lead us to crow pose. So, just going to start in a comfortable seat. Comfortable seat for me means a little cushion underneath my bum. What we're going to do first in our comfortable seat is warm up our spine just a little bit. So, taking cat-cow variations while seated. We're going to hold onto our knees, but just very gently, and tent your fingertips. So, right on the knees. Roll back, drop your chin, surrounding the back. And then in your inhale, palms come down, really grab onto those knees, elbows draw in as you undulate forward, pressing the belly and the chest open. And then exhale, round back. So I like to come up onto those tented fingers because it allows me to sort of reach out more. And then roll forward. So the movement originates from the pelvis. Pelvis rocks back as the spine rounds back. Pelvis rocks forward as the spine rolls open. Look up. Couple more. We can add the breath to it, inhaling forward and exhaling back. In general, in yoga, we inhale as we're expanding. Makes sense, right? The lungs are expanding as the body expands. And then exhaling as we contract or draw in. All right, come on back to center. So we get a little bit of warm up of the spine there. We're going to remove whatever bolster you had underneath you. And what we're going to do is come into a little bit of core work. Core work is one of my favorite things. And one of my favorite things about it is that it can be accessible no matter what level you're at in your body. If you haven't done yoga in ages or ever, you can still get into it. And this is where everything originates. It originates from the center of our body. So we're going to start with just holding onto our knees. Elbows in. Lift your chest. And then we're going to rock back, kind of same as we just did. Rolling back, spine rounds, chin to chest. Inhaling, tip the pelvis forward, open the chest. When you do this, you really lift up through your belly. Exhale, round back, so belly softens. Inhale, roll up. When you lift your chest, lift it all the way from the low belly. That might sound a little weird, but the more you lift your low belly, the low back lifts and flattens and the chest can rise. Let's just do a few more like this. All right, now we're going to come into a little deeper variation. So what we're going to do is just reach the hands out in front of us. Right here already, we're engaging the core, lifting the chest as much as we can. You should feel some low back muscles on. You should feel some belly muscles on. If your low back feels like, ooh, that's not great, right? You can always walk your feet out a little bit further. Walking the feet out further helps you tip your pelvis forward a little bit so you don't have to put quite so much work and strain into the low back. It's your call, your body. All right, for me, my feet are going to be about this close. Chest is going to lift, and then I'm going to reach out and roll back. When I roll back, I'm just going to hover off the ground. So I can be pretty high, or I can come down low so my tips of my shoulder blades are almost touching the ground. Then roll up and lift the chest. So rolling down, pelvis is tilting back as I round my back and come down. And then lifting up. When I get to the top, pelvis tries to tip forward as the chest lifts. Let's just do that a couple times. Starting to feel the heat build. And customize it for your body. So you can do smaller motions if that's what your body is up for today. Smaller is completely fine as long as we're honoring the intention of the movement, right? So Let's come down to our backs, reaching out, rolling down, or getting to your back, however it works for you. We're going to move into a little bit more core work here. So what I want us to do is bring our knees into our chest. Move this pillow in case you can still see it. So knees into chest, and the first thing I want us to do is just feel how the low back grounds itself on the floor when you do that. Let's feel the opposite for a second. So the opposite is legs long on the ground, and you feel that low back pop up off the floor. I have a loose shirt on, so I don't know if you can see it, but the low back kind of is so far off the floor that I can stick my arm underneath my low back here. We don't want that when we're doing core work. So when we're doing core work, what we want is to not be able to stick anything underneath that low back. You can feel that with the knees into the chest. Let's take a few practice motions here so that we can feel how to keep that low back on the ground. Arms can support you down on the floor. That'll give you a little stability. Squeeze the legs together. And when you squeeze the legs together, it helps to start to activate that low belly, low core. Let's just take our big toes to touch. So everything in the legs and the toes is squeezing together. And then tap the toes down to the ground as close to your butt as you can. And then lift it up. So for most of us, that's a pretty controlled movement. And we felt like, yeah, I can keep my low back on the ground. Let's try it a little bit further out. So as we tap our toes down to the ground, it's just a little further away from our butt. And come back to center. Cool. So let's try it out a little further. There's a point at which your body's like, oh no, my low back's going to come up off the ground. Now, it's okay if it gets to the point where it's like, whoop, but it doesn't come up because you pancake your belly flat to the ground and you can keep control. But if there's a point where it feels like things are getting very strained or out of control, then that's when we know we just need to back up a little bit and we need to work where we're at so that later we can get deeper. All right, so let's do a few more like this. Tapping and coming back, tapping and coming back. And for those of you who have a very strong core or been doing yoga for a long time, you might get to straight legs and come all the way back. But we want to make sure that we're not straining. One thing to notice is, are you clenching your jaw? Are you clenching your neck muscles? Good information, right? Okay, let's let the feet come down to the ground and rest. Take a big breath, just letting that belly be soft. Working into our core, crow. Close. Our crow variations. We're going to bring the knees into the chest. This time we're not holding onto the knees, we're just kind of bringing them in towards the chest. And then I want us to bring our elbows close to the knees. So we're kind of in crow pose right here. You're using your belly muscles here to keep contact of knees and elbows or upper arms. Squeeze, squeeze, squeeze. All right, come on down. We're going to make that a little bit of a core exercise. So hold on to your head. What I mean by that is the heels of your hands are sort of about where your cheekbones are, and the palms of your hands are covering your temples. Elbows squeeze in. Now we can roll up with control and try to touch those knees to the triceps, and then come down. Roll up and try to touch knees to triceps, and come down. Let's keep doing that. And don't use momentum. It's so tempting to use momentum, but we want to instead use control. Slow and steady. One more time. See if you can tap. Great. And if you need to make that motion gentler, you can always kind of not touch your head, but rather just take your hands out in front of your face-ish and be working right there. If you need to make it deeper, more intense, we can take the hands behind the head. Don't interlace them all the way. That's just going to be way too much. We want them just gently fingertips touching. Then elbows in. Same thing. Roll up. Try to touch knees and come down. So the whole time your head is staying on the floor. Let's do one more because, oh my goodness, they build some heat. Boom. All right, come on down. Rest. Belly relaxes. Take a big breath. We're going to sit on up. So you might take this opportunity to make it into a little bit of core work. Roll up, chest lifts. Okay. From here, I want us to feel some more sensations of what it's going to be like in crow pose, especially the sensation of what it's going to feel like in your belly. So as we attach the knees to the upper arms, we can think first about where our feet placement is. The further out you are, the more it's kind of just a little relaxed, hanging out on the beach kind of pose, right? The further the heels are in close to the butt, the more we can feel that engagement of the belly. So let's try to get the heels in kind of close to your butt. Check it out. Knees are touching the arms. For me, I'm going to try to get those knees as close up to my armpits as I can. For you, you might have some things that are obstructing you in your body, or you might have a little core weakness because you haven't done a lot of core work lately, and maybe your knees are more out towards your elbows. Whatever it is for you, that's great. It's where you're working. So let's be here with the knees touching the arms and just open the chest. We can start with palms together. What I want us to feel here is the lifting up of the belly muscles. So imagine the space below your belly button lifting up. Open the chest. All right, let it go. So that was sitting triceps on top of the knees. That's one variation of crow pose. The other is to take the arms on the insides of the knees a little bit. And what I want us to feel here, you might have to have your feet a little bit further out from your butt this time. That's okay. What I want us to feel here is the sensation of really pushing the knees into the arms. Those of you who remember the thigh master, that's the sensation we're going for here, the squeezing in of the knees. So what that does is it actually activates some deeper lower core muscles by squeezing the knees in. Same exact thing. We're trying to get those knees up close to the upper arms if we can. And we can pretend we're in crow by looking up and turning our palms to the sky. What I want us to feel here is the lift of the core muscles. So if you're here and you're just kind of like, bleh, then you're not going to be getting what you need out of this. If you're here and you're trying to tip your pelvis forward and you're trying to raise your chest to the sky, then you will feel it. Really squeeze those knees in. All right, let's let it go. Breathe, breathe, breathe. Let's come to an easy seat and then just kind of roll around. So do some hula hoops. Do some cat cows back and forth. Loosen up the spine. All right, and this is a short class, so we can't do all the prep that I would love to do to get into crow pose, but I am going to go ahead and get into the full pose so we can see what it's like. So let's come into first just a forward fold. So forward fold with knees bent. It's completely okay to always do your forward fold with your knees bent. Some of us can straighten our legs. Some of us aren't there. That's fine. Let's start with knees bent here and tailbone lifting up towards the sky. So we can hold on to the backs of the legs. Tip the tailbone up towards the sky like you're going duck-tailed. Good. All right. So now that we've got that, we can bend the knees a little bit more, or a lot more, depending on your body, right? Plant the hands just about maybe 6 or 7 inches out in front of your feet. And then I want us to feel the sensation of starting to put a little weight on our hands. For some of us, this is where we'll stay. And we'll just play with this and go, okay, it's a little bit scary, but I'm working on it. Okay? No matter where you are, I want you to work on a certain hand technique. So I'm going to see if I can get a little bit closer to the camera so I can show you. The hand technique looks like this. So if your hand were on the ground, you're going to sort of claw the ground until your middle knuckles start to come up. So when you kind of do that, you have a lot of control through the fingertips as well as the heel of the hand. And that way, when your weight tips forward or back, you feel like you have that control, right? So let's try that. We're going to bend the knees. See if we can put some weight on the hands. So if this is just way too awkward for you to be on your feet and the hands on the ground, you could try it with your knees on the ground, just in a tabletop, and rock the weight forward So you really have to claw into the ground to catch your weight. And then rock the weight back so you feel, that's what it feels like to put the weight in my heels. Because when you come up into that crow pose balance, it's going to be this like gentle rocking and figuring out the balance between tips of fingers and heel of hand. All right, so play around with it there wherever you are. And then just for a moment, come into that regular forward fold and shake out your wrists. All right, from here, what we're going to do is see about coming onto the balls of the feet. So lift the heels up off the ground, open the chest. We don't want to go concave here. We want to keep the chest open and the shoulders drawing back. Place the hands on the ground. Maybe those knees make contact with the backs of the arms. Or if you're going for the other variation that we did, they could make contact with the outer part of the arms. It's your call. This on the top of the arms, a little bit more difficult. This with the knees squeezing the outside of the arms, often a little bit more accessible. So let's look forward. Keep looking about a foot out in front of your hands. Then you can rock your weight, really get that fingertip action going, and then maybe one foot comes up, and then maybe the other one does too. Yeah. This is all stuff we're working towards and working on. So it doesn't matter if you ever get your feet up off the ground in crow pose. It matters that you're working on the principles. You're working on the principles of balance. You're working on the principles of core. And maybe someday you get into that fancy crow pose and you can post it on Instagram, and that's great. But maybe not. It doesn't matter. You're working on the principles in your own body. You're working with the challenge that you need in this moment. Remember that. I hope to see you in some of my live streaming classes so we can work on this stuff together.